Goggles and aprons are safety equipment we need you to wear at all times during dissection. So to do the dissection, you need to make sure that your hair is tied back. We don't want your hair to get into the dissection or any of that, distracting for you to have your hair down. So hair should be tied back if you have long hair. And then regardless of whether or not you have prescription glasses, you need to wear goggles. So if you don't have prescription glasses, you would wear these types of glasses. Whereas if you do have prescription glasses, they will not fit underneath these goggles. So then you would wear probably something like this instead. Also keep in mind, we don't want your clothing to get dirty. We don't want your jewelry and other things to get potentially into the dissection. So you want to make sure if you have long sleeves that you're rolling them up, that if you have any dangling jewelry or sweatshirt ties that they're tucked inside a sweatshirt. And lastly, it's optional to wear an apron during the dissection. You don't need to, but if you do, then make sure that you tie it in a bow at the back, not a double knot, because it gets to be hard to take off. When you're done, this is also really important, we don't want to have a pile full of aprons just piled into the box. So you want to fold your apron neatly. There's not an exact way you have to do this, but the way we typically tell you to do that is just make sure all the ties are in and then fold them over. And then if you now just fold it into a neat square or rectangle, then this very neatly fits into a box and you don't again have a messy box full of aprons. Okay, thanks very much.
So let's talk about gloves. Gloves are going to be reserved for the surgeons and assistant surgeons only, okay? The size of the glove is important, okay? You don't want gloves too big because when you're working with the pigs, the tip of your gloves might get in the way and it's going to be hard to maneuver around the pig. Alternately, gloves that are too small might rip on you, right? And that defeats the purpose of the glove. To determine the size of the glove, what you're going to use is the diagram on the side of the glove box. What you do is you take the middle of the palm of your hand, and you place it on the glove box. Where your longest finger reaches on the box is going to determine the size of the glove you want to wear. Okay? Putting on gloves is the easy part. Once you put on your gloves, you want to remember to cuff your glove at the end near your wrist about 1/2 inch or so. The reason you want to do that is to help make cleanup easier. Okay, so say you've been working with the pig, you've been working all period, and now you're finished and it's time to clean up. When you take off your glove, you do not want to try to pull off the glove by the fingers, okay? That's bad for 2 reasons. One is that in that process, you might rip the glove and pig crud is going to get on your hands, and that defeats the purpose. 2 is when you're doing that, you might snap pig crud onto your papers, onto your lab partners, or onto yourself, and that's not going to be cool. Okay, so here comes the reason why you wanted that 1/2 inch fold. When you're peeling off your glove, you want to put your fingers underneath that fold and peel off the glove inside out. Okay, because then think about where all the pig crud is. It's nice and neat on the inside. Take this glove, you bundle it up, put it into the palm of your other glove, and then take the other cuff you made and peel that off onto your other hand. Boom, you have a nice little bundle of gloves with all the pig crud on the inside. Simply toss this away into the large gray trash can, and you're good to go.
During the dissection, you'll be using 4 types of tools that are stored in your dissection kits. The first tool is called the forceps, otherwise known as tweezers. These are useful for picking up small things, sometimes grabbing it and holding it to the side. And the forceps are going to fit into the sort of diagonal part of the dissection kit where their shape fits best. The second tool you're going to use is going to be the scissors. Okay, scissors, of course, are for cutting, and in this case, you're going to be cutting through soft bone. Occasionally, you may have to cut through a part such as the ribs, and you'll use the scissors to do that. The scissors, of course, fit into the part of the dissection kit that has room for the handles. The next tool is the probe. Okay, the probe is the tool you're going to use the most. The probe is a great tool because it's not too sharp on the end, about as sharp as the tip of a pencil. You can use this to point, you can use it to trace or practice an incision. You can use it if you wanted to sort of hold something to the side, right? So that's a really useful tool. It needs to go right next to the scissors in order to be able to easily take it out again. The last tool is going to be the scalpel. And the scalpel is, of course, sharp. Okay, so you're going to be really careful with handling the scalpel. And in fact, you're going to handle the scalpel as little as possible. Really, the only time you need the scalpel in your hand is at the exact time you're making a cut. You're going to carefully make your cut, and then you're just going to set the scalpel down again. If you need to ask for help or point at things or talk about it, just immediately set the scalpel down. Okay, don't fall into the habit of gesturing with your scalpel in your hand and pointing it towards people or pointing it toward structures in the pig. When you go to put the scalpel away, you're going to put it back in the dissection kit as such. If it's the gray kit, it's really important that you want to put the scalpel so that the handle is where the opening it is. You would not want people to have to reach in where the blade is in order to pick up the scalpel. In either case, you're going to put the scalpel in blade down so that it's nowhere near where people are putting their hands. Another safety tip on the scalpels, if the tip should break off, occasionally it breaks off horizontally, just call a teacher over immediately and we'll pull that tip out for you. Don't try to do it yourself. The last thing to remember, at the beginning of the dissection, go ahead and pull out the tools that you're going to need. And then put the dissection kit aside. At the end of the dissection day, you can clean and dry your tools and put your nice clean dry tools back in your kit. You're gonna leave your kit open on the dissection tray so that the teacher can check it at the end of the dissection period.
The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you hold it correctly. So for me, I like to hold mine almost like a pencil. Notice how far my fingers are from the actual blade. What you don't want to do is bring your fingers really close to that blade and be holding it right there. You also don't want to be holding it all the way down here. These are really sharp, so you want to make sure that when you're cutting, you're not cutting almost like in a saw action, right? You don't want to go front and back like this. You want to just make sure that you cut in a manner where you're just slicing, right? It's not a back and forth slice. The next thing is you want to make sure that you're cutting away from your hands and your partner's hands. If I'm holding a part of the pig here, notice how your blade can get stuck on something, right? And then you can just go, then I could actually injure myself that way. So you want to make sure you're cutting away from your hand. Have your partner sit in front of you for the best position for the both of you to work together. It's much more challenging when your partner is sitting next to you and the two of you want to have the same angle. There's a technique that I want to teach you to avoid. And this is something that I see often. Students take their scalpel, instead of going straight down where they're making their cuts, they're doing a side slice. The point of the skin where you're making your cut is not the same point when you go deep. You want to make sure that when you're holding your scalpel, that when you're making your cuts, your incisions, you're actually going in an angle that's sort of top to bottom instead of slicing. Last but not least, it's important to make your cuts superficially, which means that they're not deep, right? So make your superficial cuts and then go ahead and make them deeper, and that gives you some practice as to kind of how deep you want to go.
This is cleanup. At the end of every day, when we're done with the dissection, we have to clean up our pig. First thing is first. With our bag, we always want to make sure we leave our bag in the sink so that if there's any juice in the bottom, it doesn't leak out onto our table. We always want to clean up by putting the pig in the bag over the sink. But before we do that, a really good thing that we want to do is use something called Safe to basically give a couple of sprays to our pig to keep it moist. Do not confuse the Safe with the Simple Green. This is the cleaning solution that we use to spray our tables, our sinks, maybe clean up our trays. So you'll notice that there's a different color, right? The Simple Green has a greenish color. The Safe is more clear. So once I've got my pig sprayed with Safe, wet, moist, I'm gonna take it and I wanna put it into my bag over the sink so I don't drip too much. So I might bring the tray close to the sink, get my bag opened up, let it drip a little bit, and then slide it right in. Once it's in the bag, what I want to do is press all of the air out of the bag, create almost like a vacuum situation, because if you have too much air in the bag, what ends up happening is they don't fit into the buckets because everyone's bags are full of air. So I want to press the air out, seal the Ziploc part of it, and then I'm ready to return this into the bucket. The other thing we need to make sure that we think about when we clean up is our sinks. So this sink right here, this is your group's responsibility. If this is my sink and my group's sink, I need to make sure that there's no standing water around the edges of the sink, nothing stuck inside the sink. I might take some paper towels to wipe up all around the edges like this. Make sure I grab anything out of maybe there's some paper towels in the sink, I want to grab those. Make sure it's clean and ready to go. With all the trash like paper towels, maybe parts from the pig that we've dissected, all of that stuff needs to be thrown away. We don't want to throw it away in any other trash can except The big trash can's in the back of the room. That's where I want to throw all of my stuff. That's cleanup.